You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, and my mate James Jones. And this is the Opposition View, looking ahead to Chelsea at home on Friday night at London Stadium, the first Premier League home game of the season so far. And after the 3-0 drubbing at Sunderland on the weekend, what is not to look forward to? The club world, the world champions come to town, the greatest team on the planet. Apparently. And I'm delighted to say that joining us on the We Are West Ham podcast from Chelsea Fan TV and other huge publications up and down the land and general media infamy is Charlie Patrick at Blue Brother CFC. Charlie, great to chat to you again, mate. You are, as I described you on the podcast earlier this week, one of the more cerebral, sensible Chelsea fans whom I very much enjoy talking about football. Talk to me about Chelsea 0-0 against Crystal Palace at the weekend. A little bit of a hangover from becoming the world's best team, is it?
Well, mate, that's quite the intro. Hopefully I can live up to expectations now with my contributions. But yeah, no, obviously disappointing not to get the win. Of course it is. It's always disappointing when you don't win any game, I find. But I think there's got to be a bit of perspective. We've been back in training 10 days. I don't want to make it like this sound like excuses, but just trying to give a bit of a balanced view here. Like, we've been back in training 10 days. Obviously, we've been busy in America, getting that gold badge on the chest for the next 4 years, which you'll see.
4 years.
Yeah, which you'll see up close and personal at the London Stadium Friday night. And yeah, it was a bit sluggish. I have to be honest. It was a bit sluggish, but this is basically the first, probably up until the international break in September. This is probably going to be these 2-3 games. I think got you Friday and then Fulham the following weekend. These are going to be kind of like pre-season games. And that's not me writing these games off. That's just the reality of the situation of kind of where we're at right now. Did I expect more? Absolutely. We were sluggish against Palace. We looked off the pace. We didn't get the forward players involved enough. Caicedo was basically on his own in the midfield. But I'm not particularly worried about what I've seen. I think it's, I'm not going to start panicking after 90 minutes of football. We've had seasons where we started terribly. And
just us then, Charlie, because we have been.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's a bit different when you got 2 trophies in the back pocket from the previous season. You can maybe fall back on things a little bit. But yeah, look, it's frustrating. We should have done more in that game. We should have obviously got the ball more to the attackers. We should have moved the ball quicker. But we just looked lethargic. We looked a bit sluggish, and we looked off the pace. And it's kind of what I expected to a certain degree. Having said that, we still had 1 or 2 really big opportunities to win that game, particularly Andre Santos right at the end, where he's in space just inside the box and he just leans back. I think he got a bit excited, probably leans back and skies it miles over the bar. Probably scores that for Strasbourg last season. But yeah, nothing to be overly concerned about. I think it's also important to point out that Crystal Palace are a good side, by the way. Now, that's not me saying that Chelsea shouldn't be beating Palace. We should be beating Crystal Palace. Of course we should. But they're they
won a proper trophy recently.
Yeah, well, exactly. What, Community Shield's proper trophy now, is it? Yeah, no, they're a very good side, well drilled. I was very impressed with what I saw from them. Eze, the wonderful footballer, he was very, very good in that first half. And to be fair, we got lucky with that free kick. One of those rules that must be...
Mate, totally.
They must have dusted down the manual and I don't know what page that one's on, but I wasn't even aware that was a rule. But I'm more than happy to benefit from it.
I bet you are. It's funny, Charlie, actually, because at first, me, like everyone else, was watching it on telly and saw, and I was like, oh, he has fouled in there. Like, Gahey did sort of kind of rugby tackle.
On Caicedo a little bit, wasn't it? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. He kind of like sort of proper shoulder bars him. I was like, yeah, it's one of them pathetic, annoying ones, but yeah, he has pretty much like sort of shoulder charged him out of the way, fair play. And then when they said about the 1 metre away bit, I thought it was bizarre. And then someone on Twitter did a really good thing. And they were like, right, can someone find me videos of the last 10 direct free kicks that have gone in the Premier League, and we'll see how often an opposition player was within a metre of the wall? It's like almost all of them. It's so funny. Yeah, and it's just a bit like when Declan Rice got sent off for Arsenal last season for nudging the ball out. It's like, I mean, I could sort of see it, even if it was for the foul. I was like, yeah, probably fair enough. Shame, because it was a good free kick. He hit it well, but he shoved him out the gap, didn't he? And then, yeah, the wall thing was a bit strange. Hard done by if you're a Palace fan. Gahey only needed to push him the other way and he'd have been fine.
Yeah. No, look, they played very well. I think they can feel hard done by. I would say we were lucky to a certain degree. There's no denying that. To a certain degree, we were lucky in that game. I was excited to see, quite a few debutants. Obviously, we've seen them in America, seen them, in a couple of games against Leverkusen and Milan before the season started. But to see them first time proper in the Premier League, I mean, it's a bit disappointing for Joao Pedro. Difficult afternoon for him, up against Lacroix at the back, Gerhi, physical players. That's not really his game. Maybe I would have liked to have seen Liam Delap introduced earlier. That's a bit more his style, physical battle, getting involved in that sort of thing. I thought Esteval was really exciting when he come on, the Brazilian kid who's looking special, looks like he could make contributions this season. There's lots to be positive about, but ultimately it does mean on Friday that, rightly or wrongly, we do sort of need to go and win, because otherwise, despite it only being 2 games, people will start being like, well, hang on a second, what's sort of going on here? You start getting questions thrown at you. Not that should happen, but full well that's exactly what will happen.
I've backed you for top 3, mate. So
so have I. So we got 37 games left. So we're still in the race.
Charlie, what's the feeling around Enzo Maresca at the moment? Because I know there were stages last season where there were question marks over whether he was the guy. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of, after the odd defeat here and there, I'm going, there's question marks over his tactics, question marks over his approach. He's now won technically what is a World Cup. What's the feeling now? What's the feeling now? Because in my head, I'm like, any manager that wins a World Cup,
technically a World Cup.
Any manager that wins a World Cup,
technically won the World Cup. West Ham won the World Cup, didn't they?
Exactly, yeah. We won it more than Chelsea.
We won the actual one. But you know what I mean? It's like, surely he's almost like this. Is this year a bit of is the pressure off him a little bit more this year because he's won that trophy? And as you just said, some of the signings have been pretty good.
The pressure's never off at Chelsea. The pressure's always on, whether you've won 2 trophies in the previous season or whether you haven't won anything. The pressure's always on. I think what he has done is he's proven a lot of people wrong. There are a lot of doubters. When we first appointed him, he wasn't really on anyone's radar particularly. He had one season in the Championship where he had a good season, by the way. He won the league with Leicester, but he won the league with the best team. So I don't want to discredit that achievement, but kind of looking at that and you're thinking, right, okay, how good actually is this guy? Come into Chelsea, it's a very difficult job. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations, high turnover of players, young players as well, no real leaders in the dressing room, that sort of thing, no real what you'd refer to as senior pros. And we started really well. I think we took a lot of people by surprise. And, there were conversations about title race sort of coming up to December. Remember, we had one game, the last game before Christmas, Everton away at Goodison Park. If we'd won that game, we would have momentarily gone top ahead of Liverpool. We obviously had a game in hand. We drew that game 0-0, and then that sort of set in our drop off over December, January, kind of February time. And then we finished the season very strongly. One thing that was thrown at the manager was not really being tactically flexible, tactically adaptable, adapting in game, too much like for likeness or leaving things too late. But certainly towards the end of the season, if you remember, Chelsea's running was difficult and people weren't really giving us much of a chance of securing a top 4, top 5 finish with those games. But actually, the only one we lost in the end was away at Newcastle, where we actually played better with the 10 men, funnily enough, but we lost that game away at Newcastle. But the other ones, we beat Liverpool, we beat Forest. Yeah, we beat Liverpool, we beat Forest, teams that we beat United at home. I know that's not like a big thing to be sort of showing off about, but big pressure.
We did the double over them.
Yeah, you did as well. Big pressure on that game with what was at stake. So he's won a lot of people over. He's proven that he can manage at this level. He's proven that he can get a team playing. And I tell you what, when you win trophies and when you pick up big results, you definitely win a lot of trust over from the fans. So I think, look, there's always going to be people that they made their mind up about the manager. Whatever he does, they're not going to like him or they're never going to be on board with it. But I think generally speaking, he's got a lot of fans on side and he's definitely proven a lot of people wrong. And there's a real good vibe and good feel about this season.
I noticed you got your Gianfranco Zola shirt behind you, Charlie, and sort of homage to the fact you're coming on a West Ham podcast.
He was your manager, wasn't he?
He was.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. I think most West Ham fans have probably forgotten about it as well. Charlie, what do you make of all of these, the players you've signed and your approach? Because it's fair to say Todd Bodie got widely mocked when he first came in, spending £1 billion. You couldn't move. Certainly in the industry that I work in, for seeing 1 billion in a headline or in a YouTube title or anything like that, £1 billion spending spree. He's giving ridiculously long contracts. What's going on here? It's mad. Now it appears to be that he was a bit of a mystic meg as far as the PSR rules go, because lots of teams are copying him. Obviously, that does, as we saw with Graham Potter as well, puts the manager in a difficult position when you've got such high turnover of players, so many egos to keep happy, which is obviously a near impossible job. What do you make just sort of the ownership model and what it looks and feels like with the amount of players and your general approach?
Yeah, do you know what? When they first come in, because we've been so used to one way for 20 plus years under Roman, very unique situation. Anyone coming in with any different thing was going to be, you know what football fans are like. We're set in our ways. We like a certain way of doing things, and then when you have a consortium come in that is literally couldn't be more polar opposite to what we were doing for the previous 20 years. There's always going to be a bit of pushback against that. There's always going to be a little bit of misunderstanding, not really quite sure what's going on here. And to be honest, things didn't start well at all. That first season, we finished 12th. Started with Thomas Tuchel, then we brought in Graham Potter, and then we brought Frank Lampard back for some magic for a final 10 games stint, which we won one game in.
One last hurrah!
But the vibes were great. So at that point we lost. At that point we lost so many games. It was like, we might as well lose with Lampard in charge instead. So that seems to be the thought there. Yeah, exactly. But no, look, it's been questioned and rightly questioned. A lot of players coming in, a lot of money being spent on these players, young players. With looking at developing these guys, and then maybe the ones that don't make it, you sell on for a profit, and the ones that do make it, you've got them at a reasonable price before they become good. It's almost trying to cut out that middleman, so you're not having to go to a Brighton and spend 100 million every time they find someone. You don't have to go to these clubs. You try and find these guys yourself, and you develop those players before they become the 70.
What novel approach!
Yeah,
right. Brighton will be gutted.
Well, they will be gutted, but to be fair, they do it better than anyone. So even if we try and do it, it's like they'll always probably be the best at it. But look, a lot of players coming in, a lot of signings not working out, and it did have a little bit of a feel, certainly early on, as one of those things where if you just chuck enough stuff at the wall, someone's going to work out. It's purely numbers game. The more players if you sign 20 players, well, probably 2 or 3 of them will work out. And I felt like we were just going for a high volume approach where. You're going to get some that work and you're going to get some that don't. You get hits like Cole Palmer, but then you'll get disappointing situations like a Mudryk or an Nkunku where things, their expectations, but things don't work out. And I think that's kind of how football goes. There's always risk attached to every signing. And they've come in for a lot of criticism, by the way. But it's but winning suddenly makes people forget about that. You could have the worst problems in the world off the pitch, hate the ownership, it's this and it's that. If your team's winning and you're getting trophies and you're getting results on the pitch, all that gets forgotten about. The only time any sort of stuff gets brought up about ownership or anything like that is when you're not getting the results on the pitch. So I think they've won some people over. We're getting the results, so you can't really argue against it. I think there's a big gamble and a big risk attached to turning so many players over each window. It is hard to build a continuity. Yeah. But at the moment, I'm not saying, this model's perfect and it's worked and whatever, but it is showing signs of working. And Chelsea
that's what you're saying, Charlie.
Yeah, well, it does feel like there's signs of it working and we're definitely heading in the right direction. Can we win a Premier League or a Champions League with this way of operating? Only time will tell, but we're certainly heading towards that rather than getting further away from it.
Yep.
Charlie, how do you see Friday going then? Because, you've already alluded to the fact that Chelsea need to win, given all the expectation. You need to win after a disappointing.
Pressure's on them, James, isn't it?
Pressure's on. We need to win. First time.
We don't need to win.
We've just been battered by Sunderland. And apart from last season, because last season when you came to London Stadium and you beat us 3-0 with Lopetegui's West Ham, Lopetegui didn't like playing with tactics or defenders, so it was a lot easier for Chelsea just to run riot a little bit. But previously, we've had some good results against Chelsea at London Stadium. We picked up some good wins, League and Cup. So how do you see this one going?
Look, we got to be honest. No game in the Premier League is easy, especially away from home.
No. He thinks you're going to win 6-0, James. He thinks you're going to win 6-0.
But you are.
No game in the Premier League's easy. Come on, Charlie.
But you are right though. Before last season, the record at the London Stadium for Chelsea wasn't particularly good. We struggled there for a number of years. You say whether it was League or the Cup. I've got to be honest. When I look at where West Ham are now, you are struggling. I think there's the basis of there's some good players there, by the way. And I do like Graham Potter as a manager. I think he's a good manager, but the tools that he's got to work with right now, they're not the best. I do like Hermanson in goal. We were linked with him when Maresca was first appointed last time. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I think the fullback combination the fullback combination is good. You know, the kid Juve that's coming from Prague, he looks a good player. The forward line is okay, you got Jared Bowen. Fulkrug he can be a bit of a handful. I look at West Ham, for me, the midfield, there isn't really a midfield. There's big problems there. And I think Chelsea can look to exploit that. We can definitely look to get at your defence with the pace that we've got potentially on the counter-attack. You know, you've got dangerous players. You've got guys with pace, Gittins or Pedro Neto or Joao Pedro or whoever it might be, Cole Palmer breaking from a little bit deeper. So, look, this won't be easy. I do think West Ham have got the bit. No, it would be it would be disingenuous of me to sit here and go, "I'll be easy. We'll win this. It'll be a breeze." Like it won't. We will have to work hard for it. But I think we've got the quality to beat West Ham. You know, but again, it just depends what Chelsea turns up on a day, and it depends what West Ham turn up as well. First game of the season, the boys might, you know, they'd be desperate for a response, I suppose. But I can't see anything. I'll be honest, I can't see anything other than a Chelsea win. But I wouldn't say that West Ham have got absolutely zero chance.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that.
That was the most diplomatic, respectful TV pundit answer I've ever had, Charlie. And I appreciate you not coming on the podcast.
Come on here and go, "Oh, you guys are absolutely terrible. It's going to be easy. Nothing to worry about."
No, we can read between the lines, though, Charlie. We knew what you were saying.
yeah, exactly, mate. Yeah. Just quickly before we let you go, Charlie, because I know you're pressed for time. Graham Potter, you've sort of touched on it there already. Do you think he's a good manager? I think now is as good a time as any to speak on the topic, because I think West Ham fans are a bit like, we've given him a benefit of the doubt last season because he was playing with Julian Lopetegui's players. He's had a whole pre-season to instill his ideas. Not that he's had much backing at all in the transfer market. And then we've served up that absolute dross on day one. Just give me your thoughts about Graham Potter and obviously his time with you guys.
Yeah, look, obviously, you know, he done a good job. Obviously, remember when he was in Sweden first, you know, he really kind of
not another one talking to me about Ostersunds.
What I meant is though, like, really kind of aware of him when they beat Arsenal or whatever it was at the Emirates, or they got a decent result against Arsenal. He goes to Brighton, does a very good job there, playing forward-thinking football, getting Brighton playing some of the most exciting football in the league. And I don't blame him for taking a Chelsea job, by the way, because this is a guy that was spoken about as a potential next England manager. His stock was really high. He comes to Chelsea, we parachute him into an absolute mess. You know, it was Thomas Tuchel did the whole pre-season. They signed the players that Tuchel wanted, and then we pressed the button on him, and he comes into a situation where he's had no pre-season, doesn't know any of the players. It's a massive step up in terms of pressure, in terms of quality of players you're working with, in terms of expectations. And he just wasn't ready for it. We don't have an influx of players in that 2023 January window. You see all the reports. You know, there wasn't enough space in the changing rooms for players to get changed. Players getting changed in the corridors. You're doing 2 11v11s in training. There's that many players, and ultimately, looking back, the job was too big for him. I'm not sure he had the personality for it at the time, and he was put into a situation where it was very, very difficult for him to have any sort of success. I almost feel like he was set up to fail. But I like him. I think he's got good ideas. I think he's a little bit disrespected, because before the Chelsea spell, he was talked about as one of the brightest talents in English coaching. And I don't think the Chelsea spell should define what he is as a manager.
I don't think it does, though, mate, to be honest. I think actually West Ham is kind of where people are going, all right, well, we'll give you a pass for Chelsea. I'm one of those people. But I think it's like, but now's your time to prove it, mate. Now is your chance at a club who have got a fan base who want to play good football. Now's your chance to prove it. And I think, again, as a pass last season for Lopetegui, there's only so many passes you can get. All right, he hasn't been backed in the transfer market, but
that's key, though, isn't it?
At some stage, you've got to make something work, haven't you?
Yeah, you have. You know, obviously, you want to get back to the market. I think everyone knows it. I don't have to be a West Ham fan to know that the issues of the board, the ownership, not being backed in the market, not bringing in good enough players, a real lack of quality still, needs several signings before, you know, the window shuts in the next couple of weeks. And it's difficult for a manager, because there's only so much you can do with the tools that you've got. And you could argue that, okay, West Ham should be doing better with what's at his disposal. But with everyone else in the Premier League, their team's getting better, and you see the money that newly promoted. It's like you see what's the money that Sunderland are spending, the ambition that ownership showing, the quality of players they're bringing in. Leeds are spending money. I mean, I wouldn't worry so much about Burnley, but they've still spent money as well. On decent players. And I sort of look at West Ham and I think, club with loads of history, great tradition. They've had top players playing for them. If they're not careful, they don't back Potter and give him what he needs and improve the quality in this squad. Like, there's a genuine chance that West Ham could be banging a relegation battle and they could go down.
Well, there we go. That's finally got you to say what you think, Charlie.
No, I'm just putting it out there. I mean, I'm sure you boys feel similar, potentially, that it could be a difficult season.
I just think we'll come 14th, to be honest, and it should be like,
that'll be all right.
Right, Charlie, it's been I'll say it's absolutely brilliant. I've really enjoyed talking to you about football most of the time. You did a very good job of being diplomatic about the fact that you think Chelsea are going to win 6-0 at London Stadium on Friday.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Maybe that's just me thinking it. Listen,
if
Charlie,
we do that, mate, I'll take a photo from the away end of the scoreboard and I'll ping it your way.
if your phone's obviously got a powerful zoom on it, then if you're in the upper tier,
mate, I have to scroll into about 6-7 times zoom to see it.
Now, listen, mate, thanks very much for coming on. Normally I'd ask you sort of about the style of play and who you expect to play and all that. Just give me a brief, quickly, sort of what do you think the lineup will be and that sort of thing. To be honest, mate, I think it will be pretty much the same team that played Milan. Obviously, if Tosin's fit, he might come in for the young kid Josh Achimpong at centre back, and then I think we're looking at a situation where maybe he starts Esteval instead of Jamie Gittins and switches Pedro Neto to the left and starts Esteval down the right. And I'd expect Joao Pedro to continue down the middle. So pretty much the same team that played against Palace. You'll see maybe one or two changes potentially. Yeah, fair enough. Look, Charlie Patrick there at Blue Brother CFC. Pops up all over the place on some severely big Chelsea accounts, and of course very well known on in the mainstream media, I think, as we call it now. Yeah, Charlie, look, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on, mate. Thanks very much for joining us. Thank you to everyone for listening or watching at home. Don't forget that if you like these podcasts but you don't like adverts and you like getting stuff early, then you can sign up to the We Are West Ham podcast Patreon, patreon.com/We Are West Ham podcast. Doesn't cost you very much every month. You get the podcast a day before everyone else, and there's no adverts in them. What a deal. Follow us on socials as well at @WeAre_West Ham on Twitter, at We Are West Ham Pod on Instagram, and subscribe, of course, to the YouTube channel. Just search We Are West Ham podcast on YouTube. Thanks for listening, everyone. Jonesy, just quickly, what's the score going to be?
2-0 Chelsea.
2-0 to Chelsea. 5-1 to Chelsea. I'm going.
5-1.
Charlie?
I'll go 3-1 Chelsea.
You're giving us a goal. You're both giving us goals.
Give you a goal, yeah.
Don't see it.
I love how that's the most outrageous bit of those predictions. Is West Ham getting one goal. Look, absolutely brilliant having you on, Charlie. Thanks very much. Jonesy, wonderful to see you again. Thanks for listening, everyone, or watching. And of course, me and James will be back, whether we want to or not, to talk about the Chelsea game next week.